Hello, friend. Welcome to another coffee chat with Angie. I'm so glad that you're here. Grab your cup of whatever you are drinking today and get settled in, because today I want to talk a little bit about something that can bring so much calm to your evenings, and that is meal planning. Now, if you already have a meal plan that is solid and you are excited about that meal plan, you don't need to change anything with it. That's great, but still stick around, because I'm going to give you an outline for creating a system in your life to take an area that feels heavy or stressful or chaotic and bringing it to an area of calm. It could be laundry, it could be a morning routine. It does not have to be meal planning. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But 2 weeks ago, we did talk a little bit about how what works for someone else can be a really great starting point in creating your own system. But really at the end of the day, you need to make it your own. So as I walk you through what I did to create this meal planning system and some adjustments that I had made along the way, keep in mind, you are more than welcome to take any of these ideas, but make them your own. If you copy and paste it right into your life, it is not going to work the same way. My name is Angie. I'm a personal strategy coach. I help driven working moms create rock solid systems at home so dinner isn't a last minute scramble, kids' logistics aren't chaos, and self-care isn't an afterthought. Instead of guilt and exhaustion, you can finally feel present, energized, and in control of the life you are building while also having time for yourself. If you are joining either live or catching the replay, I would love to know that you are here. Please just say hi in the comments. I would really appreciate it. Okay, before we dive into the meal planning portion, I want to bring you through the process. It's a 6-step process that is a great outline to take anything, whether it be meal planning, laundry, a health routine, anything that you want. If it's an area that feels heavy or chaotic in your life, you can implement this outline into that area to create an area of calm. So here are the steps. 1, identify the area that's causing stress. It seems pretty easy, right? But it's really not, because we get caught up in this routine of doing the same thing over and over again. And we don't step outside of that because we're used to that routine, even if it's causing us stress. So it is super important just to stop and look and see what area of your life is causing you stress, and pick just one. So if you are saying, Angie, it's my whole life, just pick one, okay? And then get clear on the results you want. That's step number 2. What results do you want to have instead? What is your vision for that area of your life? And if it's not what you are living right now, what is it? Step number 3, outline the steps it would take to get there. Now, I use the term outline loosely. It's more like listing a bunch of things to get from where you are to where you want to be. So that is basically just brainstorming. If you had an outline of do this and then do this and do this, you probably would have done it already, right? So this is probably going to look really messy, and that's okay. You'll figure it out later. But put down some things that can get you from A to B, whether they're super realistic or they're not. No judging, just list. Step number 4, ask yourself, out of those things that you listed, are those things you can do right now? Do you need to maybe learn something or research some things, or maybe you need to get support? I'm going to explain that one a little bit more as I walk you through my meal planning. So if you're questioning that one, hang tight just a little bit. And then step number 5 is implement a step at a time. Get that under control, that first step, and then add in the next, and then add in the next, until you have a system that is working well. And then the 6th step is to adjust along the way. We don't want to create it and force it. We're going to be right back to where we were. We want to create it and adjust it until we get it to where we want. Now, today, like I said, I'm going to use meal planning as an example so you can see how this plays out in real life. And this was truly my real life experience. And then you can take the same process and either apply it to meal planning, or you can apply it to any area of your life, like I said, to bring that area from chaos to calm. All right, so first, identify the stress. meal planning. That was the stress. And actually it wasn't meal planning that was a stress. It was coming home from work and not knowing what was for dinner. That was the stress. So let me give you a little background information so you kind of had a sneak peek into my life at that point in time. I would come home from work. Of course, you get home from work and you're tired from working and thinking all day. And my husband and my son would ask me, okay, what's for dinner? I would have no idea. So I would look in the fridge and the pantry, which is weird to me at this time because I can't just look in the fridge and the pantry and be like, oh, we have this and this and this, and this is what we're going to make for dinner. And still to this day, I can't do that. But that's what I did. And then inevitably, somebody would have to run to the store to get buns or peppers or something that we would need for dinner that night. And we were exhausted. We had worked all day and we were stressed. And then we had to do it all over again the next day. Oh my goodness. So that is where I was at. That was step 1. 2, get clear on the vision. My vision for that space was being able to walk in the door when either of my boys asked what was for dinner. I knew what was for dinner. I knew I had all the ingredients in my house to make dinner. No one had to run to the store. I also knew I had time to make that meal. That was super important to me. I didn't want to be forcing a meal into a 15-minute time slot when the meal took 30 minutes to make. I wanted to know that I had 15 minutes and then pick a meal that took that amount of time or 30 minutes or whatever I had. So I wanted to make sure I had the time to make that meal. And I wanted to sit down as a family to eat together. So that was my vision. Now, outline the steps. Some of the things that I had brainstormed and jotted down as to things that could get me from A to B were finding some recipes. At that point in time, I could pull together sloppy joes, spaghetti, macaroni and cheese with hot dogs. That was pretty much the extent of my cooking repertoire. So if we wanted to repeat those week after week, I would have been golden, but I really didn't want to. So I needed to search for some recipes. So that was one thing I had to do. Another thing I had to do is create some kind of something so I knew how much time I had to make dinner, and that would change and flex every single night. So I needed to create something where I knew how much time I had. I also wanted to make shopping for groceries consistent instead of being like, oh, we're kind of low on groceries and then going grocery shopping and just grabbing what we think we might need for the next couple of weeks. I wanted to make sure that I knew what we were making, make the grocery list accordingly, and then go ahead and grocery shop on a regular basis. At that point in time, I really didn't care how often it was. I just knew that I wanted it to be a routine. And then I wanted to make sure that I was planning around schedules. So I needed to know everyone's schedule. I needed to have a way that it could tell me how much time I was going to have to make meals and all of those kinds of things. So those were some of the things that I had brainstormed. Now, step number 4 is gather resources or support. And so what this looks like is recipes. Searching for recipes, it's not really part of meal planning, right? It's not really, if your friend had said, hey, how is meal planning coming? You know, we talked that you were going to do it last week. How did this week go? And you're like, well, I didn't really meal plan. I just look for recipes. So it's almost like that thing that doesn't feel like you did anything towards your goal, but it truly is a building block to what you need to be successful. Because like I said, if I didn't have any more recipes, I would have gotten through the first week probably okay. And then it would have gone downhill from there because I would have been scrambling and stressed to find a recipe or two, and we would have been repeating meals over again. It would have felt very forced. So I knew that I needed to figure out some recipes before I even started, and my goal was about 20 recipes. So I had a good solid 2 weeks where we didn't repeat anything. The third week, maybe a couple favorites were repeated, and then all the rest was new. And then going into the 4th week, it was going ahead and repeating foods and maybe finding another new recipe or two. So that was an area that I needed to find resources. Support could look like, and this wasn't something that I needed, but in this meal planning example, it could look like if I knew that I was going to be gone and not able to make a meal 4 days out of the week, and I could maybe double prep on a day, but I really didn't have the capacity to go ahead and do a couple of those days. Maybe it could be that I could enroll my husband into cooking a meal a certain night of the week. Maybe he got done working a little bit earlier and he could go ahead and do one night a week. Or maybe it's, grandma and grandpa's house we went to one night a week for dinner. So that's where you enroll support. So somebody else is, you're either bouncing ideas off of, or you're running things past, or you're getting them their support. So much like kids logistics, getting them to games and practices and all of those things, it might be that a mom from the team or a dad from the team brings home your child 2 days a week, and you bring home their child 2 days a week. So you both have time off and at home. So that's what support looks like. Step number 5, implement a step at a time. You can sometimes do 2, but I really recommend doing 1. And so for me, I knew that was to research recipes first. So I went ahead and I researched tons of different recipes, and I made sure that I had that 20 before I went on to the next step. And then I went on and I figured out a calendar system to use. Like, how am I going to know how much time that I have to make these meals and which meals can go on which days? That was all based on the time that I had. So then I did that, and then I put things together and created a meal plan. And I figured out a day that I wanted to go grocery shopping, and I started off doing that once a week. So I kept adding. After that first step felt good, I added the next, and then I added the next until I had a full system. And then step number 6 is adjust as needed. So after I had that system going, I looked back and I realized actually pretty quickly that I needed to keep all of my recipes in a central location. I had recipes from cookbooks, from recipe cards, from Pinterest, different websites. And so I had to remember which meal was from which spot. So that took a lot of brain energy that I didn't need to utilize. And then I also had to remember where that recipe was, go to it, and then find all the ingredients for it. So I needed to do something with a central location. And the tool that I used is an app called Trello, Trello, and I still use that to this day. So my meal is in a Trello card, they call it, and I put the link for that meal in there, or a picture if it's in a cookbook. And then I make a checklist of all the ingredients that I need for that meal. When I am ready to make my grocery list, I go ahead and look at all those ingredients. What I have in the house and I don't need, I check off. What I need from the grocery store, I put on my grocery list, and then I check it off. And then after I'm done grocery shopping, the day that I'm going to make that recipe, I just go ahead and go into Trello and find that meal and go ahead and pop open the recipe. I don't have to run to a cookbook. I don't have to run to Pinterest. It will have everything for me right there to be able to utilize. I also, as I was doing this, realized I hated meal planning. How is this going to work when I hate doing the thing that I wanted to do in order to get the results that I wanted? And let me tell you, I loved the results. The first day that I was able to come home and they asked me what was for dinner, I was like tacos or whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was, but they were like, okay. And I had the time to make it. I made it. We sat down and ate, and it was glorious. So I loved the results, but I knew that if I had to do a meal plan every single week, I would not stick with it, to be quite honest. It was stressful, it was exhausting, and I did not like it. And you hear a lot of times you know what, you're getting good results, just keep doing it. Even though you don't like it, just keep going, keep doing it. You're strong enough, go ahead. Some things, maybe, but this, no. What can we adjust? Like, what could I do different in order to make it so it doesn't feel so stressful. I came from a stressful situation. I don't want it to still remain stressful. That's not the whole point of this, right? So what I did was thought to myself, how can I meal plan less often? And so I did it for 2 weeks at a time. That was my solution. I tried it out to see how I liked it, and I loved it. I still got amazing results, but I didn't feel like I just got done meal planning and the very next day had to do it again. And in reality, it wasn't the very next day, but it felt like it was the very next day. And here with a 2-week meal plan, it felt like I had space. It felt like I had time to breathe, regroup before I had to do it all over again. And so this was amazing. Now, I also did that only for about 3 or 4 times. And then I went to once a month. And now to this day, probably 8 or 10 years later, I still only grocery shop for our meals and meal plan once a month. I still don't love it, but I can break it down into small pieces that once a month. And I also tell myself, I can do this 12 times a year. And it feels great. It doesn't feel like I'm constantly putting myself in a situation that I don't like. So this is my meal planning system. Yours may look totally different, but those 6 steps, those are golden, my friend. Those can work for anything that is causing stress on a routine basis in your day. So these are the 6 steps. Again, identify the problem, get clear on what you want instead. So what is your vision? What are some steps that you need to get you from A to B? Gather what you need. So do you need support? Do you need to do some research? And then implement one step. Keep adding as that step gets flushed out the way you want it to. Keep adding, keep building until you have a solid system in place. And then the 6th step, adjust until it fits your life in the way you need to. And you know what, my friend? This has worked great for us for 10 years. And it might not in the future, and we're going to have to adjust. So I'm constantly, kind of just revisiting that. It's not like I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to revisit this again, but I'm constantly just checking in and being like, is this system still working good, or do I need to do something different? So keep that in mind. It could be life changes and you need to adjust. Don't keep forcing something that is not working because your life changes. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on Coffee Chat. If you found this helpful, definitely like it and share it with a friend. My prayer is that this information that I share is able to bring calm to other people's lives. We don't need to live in a stressed out craziness state, running from one thing to the next. We don't have to do that. So share it with somebody who would find this information a blessing. And if there is a system, an area of your life that you would like to create a system to, I would love to know in the chat. So just add it in the chat, and who knows, maybe on one of these coffee chats, I'll dive into creating a system that way, and you can take some tips from there. All right, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.